Good morning, everyone. I'm really, really happy to be here, really grateful, really excited. So you'll see me smiling a lot. First of all, I want to thank Nicole for saying my name correctly. I was in a conference not too long ago, and I was in a panel with 3 other people, and the moderator, bless her soul, she was really struggling. Every time she had a question, she would look to the other panelists and say their name, like, Joe, so what do you think about this? Then she would look to me, and she would say, and you? What do you think about this? And I thought to myself, maybe I should have told her my middle name is Diana. But I was like, no, it's okay. So thank you. Now today, I'm going to talk about the power of data and partnerships. And I want to start us off with a quote that has become very near and dear to my heart. It's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. The reason this quote is very near and dear to me is, it's funny actually. Up until recently, I had this disease called Lone Ranger syndrome. I thought that I could do everything by myself. And I was really happy with that idea. I'm like, why not? I'm this tall, big Nigerian girl. I can handle everything. Give me a project, I'll do it. Give me an activity to do, I'll kill it. And then I had to go to rehab. And I had to go to rehab, as most people have to go, when you've hit rock bottom, not because you choose to go. And so, like Dr. Dana mentioned, traumatic stress, toxic stress is a very serious thing. And it hit me right on the head. And with it came what I call rock star burnout. As in, I'm Nigerian and we have a saying, Naija know they carry last, which means anything we do it to the maximum. So if I'm going to burn out, I have to burn out to the maximum. And so my burnout was with physical ailments and wonderful health issues and awful insomnia. So I was really, really in a bad place. And so this saying has now become so close to me because I understand the importance of this. And the importance of knowing that if you do want to go far, you must go with other people. And so because of that, I want to lead us into a story. And specifically, it's the story of polio. Now, just for those who might not be aware, there are 3 main things about polio that everyone should always know. 1, it's a virus that may or may not cause paralysis. 2, it can be contracted through contaminated food and water. And 3, the most important one, it is very preventable through the use of vaccines, both oral polio vaccines and injectable vaccines. So on the left, you have an image of a child stricken with polio that has a typical symptom of polio that we call AFP. AFP stands for Acute Flaccid Paralysis, and that is the sudden onset of weakness or paralysis of one or more of your limbs. And that's what the child on the left is displaying. On the right, we have a child being administered the oral polio vaccine, which is what's going to ensure that that child is prevented from contracting polio. And so, I have a short video to play for you to show you exactly what AFP looks like and how surveillance for AFP is done, because that, in essence, is surveillance for polio.
Acute flaccid paralysis. Any person with weakness or paralysis of one or more limbs. Have you seen a child with weakness of the legs or arms in the last 2 months? Have you seen a child like this who could not stand or walk suddenly?
Okay, so I think now we all know what AFP looks like. And that's going to lead me into a very big component of the polio story for me, which is Avada. So in 2016, we had 3 countries endemic for polio: Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria. And being Nigerian, I wasn't happy about this. I'm like, out of all the African countries, it had to be my own. So I was very invested in joining forces with the polio program team to ensure that we stamp out polio from Nigeria. And so what we realized was the issues we had with polio in Nigeria had to do with effective detection of the disease. So we realized that while we had a traditional health system for detecting and doing surveillance at the health facility level, there were many gaps when it came to surveillance of polio at the community level. So in conjunction with the World Health Organization, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the National Primary Healthcare Agency in Nigeria, we decided, let's come up with an SMS-based innovative tool that is data-driven, that can help us actually do surveillance of polio at community level. Let's not just rely on the health facilities. So on the right, you see an image, yes, on the left for you, you see an image of a mobile phone with a caption of the actual mobile app called Avada. And this app has two components to it. One component is the live video that I just showed you in the last slide. That is an educational tool that community members can use to actually decipher what exactly AFP looks like. And the second component is a case investigation form that they can fill out when they see a case of AFP in their community. And they can fill information that says the name of the child, the location of the child, when these symptoms began, and they can pick up the GPS coordinates of that location. And the beauty of this is when they hit submit on the app, that information hits a server that is being managed by the WHO team at their data management office, and automatically that server sends an SMS notification to the phone line of the surveillance officer responsible for that locality. And that person, he or she, can now go back to that community, investigate within 48 hours, confirm if it's truly an AFP case, because they've been trained to detect that, and if it is, collect 2 stool samples. And when they collect those 2 samples, they can now take it to the lab, a polio-certified lab, and confirm and test if it's actually polio or not. And so this sounds pretty simple. This project was anything but simple. So we began in 2016 in Nigeria, in 2 local government areas. And we said to ourselves, 8-week pilots, we've done well. We've been able to detect about 20-something plus AFP cases within an 8-week period, which is great, because ideally, for every 100,000 children under the age of 15, you're meant to be able to detect at least 2 cases a year. So we saw 26 in 8 weeks, and we were like, this is really fantastic. Let's scale this thing. Let's move. And so we did, to 7 other countries. And so between 2016 and 2018, we went to Chad, Niger, DRC, South Sudan, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cameroon. We should never forget Cameroon. And as we scaled, the images that you have on your right are images of some of the community informants in different communities in these countries that were trained on how to use this app. We're given these mobile devices, and we're actually conducting weekly surveillance for AFP, in essence, for polio. And that's just images to show you what it looks like. So they're in the field, in their communities. They are filling out the forms. They're picking the GPS coordinates. Sometimes they have to move around to get the coordinates. And then they're submitting their results. So now I want to talk to you about what those results look like. So across 2 years, like I said, we went to 8 different countries. Now, across those 8 countries, we trained over 6,700 community members. People that are champions and influencers of their communities that we know if they support this project, everybody will support this project. And then across those 8 countries in 2 years and plus, we were able to detect over 1,600 AFP cases. Now, don't be alarmed. You might be thinking, is that over 1,600 polio cases? But AFP is an indicator of polio, but not a confirmation of polio. So there are other gastrointestinal diseases that might also have AFP as an indicator. So all these were tested, and the good news is none of them were polio. And please clap for that, because I'm very happy. I'm very happy. And so now I want to also move us to another story that is data-driven focused, and it's the story of GRID. So a few years ago, my team and I also looked at the status of Nigeria and said, we have an issue when it comes to understanding how to plan health interventions, because we don't know a few key things. We don't know where every settlement is located. We don't have the geo-coordinates for all these places. We don't know all the number of households that we have across every settlement. We don't know the number of under 5 children that we have in each household, which is important for a lot of these health interventions that we do. And so we came together, again, with the same partners, because we love WHO very much, with WHO and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and our government partners. We also said, let's work on a project called GRID. The idea was to map out the entire country, go across every state, and collect as many points of interest as we could. Get to all those hard-to-reach places that nobody wants to go. Places that you have to cross rivers to get to, places that have horrible terrains, and make sure that we use local people from those places to also collect information and data about those households, those settlements, and the points of interest in those areas like mosques, churches, health facilities, and the rest. And of course, pick the GPS coordinates. And so these are images of one on the left, and a lady crossing through a stream as well, trying to get to a hard-to-reach settlement. God bless her. I've done this before. I didn't enjoy it. But she did it with such good spirit. And then we have images on the other side of people being trained, local community members being trained on how to actually use the application, a simple data collection form on their phones, to collect that information and submit it. Also, similar system to Avada. Hits a server, and then everybody can access that information online. Now, the results of GRID, after about a 1 to 2 year period, where over 766,000 data sets were collected across different points of interest. So including schools, information on health facilities, information on mosques, and the rest. And this was huge for us, because when you're talking about making data-based decisions, you need the information. You need it accessible to you. So this now is able to help us actually plan better, not just for health interventions, but any other intervention, early education interventions, and the likes. And so the question is always, what made this possible? Because Avada and GRID, they are not small projects. These are nationwide, large projects that were scaled very quickly. What made it possible is the same thing that makes everything possible, the same thing that actually I learned from going to rehab. It's two things. One, strong partnerships, essential. Like I've said, you can't do anything by yourself. I tried. And this is an image on the right of some of the partners for Avada. These are people from government. Some of them are the community influencers. Some of them are the implementing partners, the funders. But that's what it takes. It takes everybody coming to the table and saying, let's do this together. If you leave anybody off that table that needs to be there, it becomes a problem. The second thing is strong data management systems. This is key. We keep talking about data-driven initiatives, but you have to think end-to-end how the system will work. From the point of the data collection tools that you design and use, to the point of how the information will be stored, analyzed, processed, how it's going to be disseminated and shared with partners. So this is a simple flow of what it looks like, right? On the right-hand side, you will see the image of the mobile phone that will typically have your mobile application. You collect your data, it gets sent into a database, it hits a server, it is processed, cleaned, analyzed, and then it is now disseminated and shared on an online dashboard where you can visualize what is happening in real or near real time, depending on where you are and how good connection is. Okay. And so with that, I come to another saying that I love very much as well. And maybe because I'm the one that coined it, but yes. And so it says, at the heart of any data-driven project or program that achieves high impact and scale is partnership. It is a minimum requirement. And so for those of us who have worked with engineering teams or are engineers, data engineers ourselves, we know a lot about the agile way of working, being quick, fast, failing quickly, being lean, and iterating as you go along. And a big component in agile is the ability to be able to prioritize your requirements and to know what is a minimum requirement and what is something you could have or could do without if you're developing a product or a project. And for me, partnership is a minimum requirement. You must have it. If you don't have it, you risk not having impact and you risk not having scale. Okay. Then the next question, how do we build these successful partnerships that enable us to actually collect and exchange data safely? Now, it's two things that from enough experience and lessons and failing, I have learned as well. One of them is common interest. And I want to tell you a quick story about a time when I was sitting with a foreign partner from the US, and we were in Nigeria having a stakeholder meeting, and we were discussing the polio program and all the initiatives we have under polio. And he was complaining that he doesn't see this sense of social responsibility by all these community members. I mean, it seems like, as in his own words, we're the ones fighting for polio more than the people who are being affected by it. And when he said that, I laughed, and I turned to him and I said, you're saying that because, after all, you and I were sitting in a comfortable office, we have an air conditioner working, right? Every day we go home, we know the house we're going to, we know the food we're going to eat, we have clothes, we have water, lights, we're fine. You're saying it because you can afford to think about social responsibility. What about the community members who simply want to know how they're going to eat from day to day? how they're going to deal with malaria. Malaria is even more prevalent for them than polio. So you are talking polio, they are thinking, give me anti-malarials, let me just deal with the issue that my child just got yesterday. So I told him it's not like that. You can't assume that we will all have that mindset because we don't all have the same privileges. And so he said, you're right. And then he now came up with a quote that I wish I came up with. But he now said, volunteerism is clearly a luxury that one can afford only when his or her basic needs have been met. And it's a fantastic quote. Again, I wish I'm the one who came up with it, but that's okay. I've let it go. And so after that, we had a strategy meeting and we said to ourselves, how do we bring community members on board? We bring them on board by ensuring that we have the same common interests, that we're communicating that what they care about, we care about. And not just that we want to push our own health agenda. We care about their health, their livelihoods, we care about their children, and we care about their progression. And the more we had those focus group discussions with community members and leaders, the more they were happy to talk to us, and the more they were willing to come on board and partner with us. Then the second thing that's very important is trust. So common interest is even easier to come by, right? It's easy to know what you and I care about. Developing trust is a much harder thing to do. And so I'll give you another example. As Nicole mentioned, I'm a big believer in supporting women and pushing women's agenda, right? So in Nigeria, every quarter, I typically host these meetup events for African women where we can deliberate, share ideas, talk about our social issues, and push our brands and our work and really support each other and become friends. Because I'm a big believer, if I don't have you, I don't have anything. So I need to have you in my support system. And so I had an event recently, and I was so excited because I came across this new payments mechanism, a mobile app where you can pay an RSVP for an event in advance. And I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, they're going to love this innovation. This is a cool technology. They can pay quickly, RSVP, fantastic. And so I sent them all the link, all the invitees. I said, okay, go to this link, make your payments, put in your information, your name, your address, your account details, and just pay. You'll be happy. The day before the events came, can you guess how many people had signed up via that link? Can anybody guess? 0. Any other guesses? 2. It's in between 0 and 2. 1. One person. And I was thinking to myself, don't they want to come to this event? So I'm like, oh my God, I've organized an event. Nobody is coming. This is bad. But I said, you know what? Even if one person comes, it's okay. Me and that person will be good. So the day of the event came, and then surprisingly, we had like lines of ladies at the event entrance ready to pay in cash. And so I asked them, I was like, why didn't you guys just pay on the link, through the link? It's so easy. And then they were like, I'm thinking, you're educated ladies, you're techie. Why did you just waste your time having to do this in person? And then 2 of them told me, they were like, Ada, because another one of my names is Ada, but that's a story for a different day. So they were like, Ada, I'm sorry, but I don't know that app. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know the app? They're like, I don't know the app. I've never used this. I don't know what it's about. But I'm like, but you know me. You trust me, right? They were like, yeah, but I don't know this app. I don't know what they're going to use my data for. And then I said, oh, I know the app. And so I assumed that they would be well-versed in it and they would be happy to use it. But that's not the case. There are many good tools out there that people will not use and will not provide their data on because they simply don't know how to trust it, and if they can afford to trust it. So I realized the fault that I had was I didn't build that trust in the app for them before the event. So that was a good lesson to learn. Trust is a big thing, and we should never discount it. Okay. And in talking about trust, when it comes to thinking about your program partners and stakeholders and your beneficiaries, when you're going back to the idea of strong data management systems, they also have to feel they can trust those systems. They have to feel that you're using systems that are safe, that will keep their data protected, that are encrypted. They have to believe that you have systems set up that can create feedback loops where information that comes in is processed and all partners involved can get information back about what is going on and the impact of the data that they've actually provided. Many times we create data-driven solutions, we implement and execute these projects, and we forget that the people who are our beneficiaries and our data providers want to know what happened with their data. They want to know how you used it and the impact it made. And so what we realized is you don't just collect data from local level and start dealing with it nationally. You have to make sure you have feedback loops where it also goes from national level, what you've analyzed, right, and processed, back down to local level, so that people know why it's mattered that they provided the information they did. So it's always good to keep these two things in mind when you're thinking about your data management systems. And so what does all of this mean for you? Because that's really the main question here. Why does any of this matter today? And it matters because as all of us are creating our programs, our projects, our data-driven initiatives, right? There are three things that I want all of us to always think and keep in mind from beginning of the project through the life cycle, even beyond. And it's one, partnerships. Partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. At this point, I could even lay on the floor and just scream partnerships for you. That's how much I'm reformed from my Lone Ranger ways. Then the second thing is strategic program planning. And what this means for me is, as you can see, it's a table of people. Understanding that all key players need to be at that table, not just the funding partner and the implementing partner, but you need representatives from the communities, right, that will speak for the beneficiaries, that will speak for those providing the data, so that everybody's voice is heard and factored into the design and strategy of that program. Because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you will design something fantastic, you'll come to implement it in a community, and they will tell you, did I ask you for this? Who did you do it for, me or you? And again, experience is a fantastic teacher, so I've learned that. Then the third thing is communication and knowledge management. I've spoken about feedback loops, but in addition to that, also making sure you document everything you do. Your processes, your best practices, your lessons learned, your failures. I'm a big believer that there is no shame in failure. The reason I am where I am today and wherever I'll go tomorrow is for the failures that I had yesterday and the failures I'm going to keep having. I think that they're so useful, they teach you so much, and they set you up for success down the line. So it's important to always note those things and share that with other program partners. And that's how we help each other. So if there's one last thing I would like you to keep in mind, it's just please, when you're designing your programs, your projects, your data-driven initiatives, just think the threes: partnerships, strategic program planning, and communication and knowledge management. And I promise you, you will do well. You will have high impact, and you will have high skill. Thank you.